Hey y'all! In this video, I'm going to update a 2-episode mini-series I created about 3 years ago. And that series was dedicated to working with script fonts. That series was shot in version 8.5 of V-Carve Pro. And as you can imagine, over the years they have upgraded a couple of times. I'm currently using Aspire version 10.5, but what I'm going to show you works identically in V-Carve Desktop and V-Carve Pro. I'm not going to go back and re-demonstrate everything I already showed you in those two videos. This is just a brief update to some of the tools and techniques that's included with the newer versions of the software. I will put a link to that 2-video series down in the description box of this video, so you can go back and check those out if you have not seen them. I'd also like to remind you that this afternoon at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, I'll be hosting a live Q&A session right here on my YouTube channel where we can discuss everything that I'm going to demonstrate in this video. So I hope to see you this afternoon. So let's go ahead and get into the software and create some text. So I'll go ahead and click Draw Text and let it load my fonts. And I'm going to use a font that everybody should have, as it was included in the Windows software, and that is English Script EF. So we'll go ahead and click that script, and I'll show you a few changes they have made to the Create Text window. Right off the bat, you'll notice there's no longer an Apply button, because all of the editing and modifications we can do here are done in real time. And I'll show you what I mean. I'll go ahead and click up here in the text window and type, and after the letter S there, I'm going to hit Enter for a hard return. And that gives me a second line. I'm going to start a second line of text here. And there is my text out here. Now, you'll notice it's way down off here, off to the side. My anchor point is set at -2 in X and -2 in Y. Well, if I want that anchored up in the middle, I'll go X 0.0 and Y 0.0. And you'll notice that the text moved in real time. Anything I do down here, I no longer have to apply that modification. It does it in real time. If I change my alignment to the left, it does so in real time. I'll go back to the center, it does so in real time. One of the things that did not change is the anchor point. When we're anchoring in X, the software takes into account the longest line of text, and it bases the X position on this longest line of text. So in X, it's oriented off of this letter L down here. In Y, however, it places the base of the first line on my Y0, because that's my Y anchor point. If I change that to Y plus 1, the base of this top line would sit on Y plus 1. So the anchor point of the text is going to be based on the width of the text object as a whole and the base of the top line. If it's all one line of text, then the base of that whole line of text will be placed on that anchor point, wherever that may be. I'll close this. Now, in previous versions of the software, if you needed to make any modifications, if you repositioned any letters, you did some kerning, you adjusted spacing, or if you rotated or resized, if you went back into this draw text window, all of that formatting would disappear. That is not the case anymore. So you can do some kerning, and if you discover a spelling error, you can go in and fix your spelling, and that modification will stay. It no longer throws that out. So that's one good thing. There's nothing worse than getting a bunch of formatting done than discover you misspelled something and you have to redo all of that formatting. So, as it pertains specifically to script fonts, what we're looking at is, again, a font that is meant to mimic handwriting. So, if we were going to V-Carve this as is right now, it would probably work okay. It would be better, however, if this H and I, for example, were joined, and this I and S were joined. If you were going to V-Carve this, it would probably be okay. The text size is only 2 inches tall, so any mismatches here, depending upon the bit you were going to use, you probably wouldn't notice. For instance, this letter I and this letter S don't join. Because this distance is so small, you just wouldn't see it. However, if you were going to cut this out as a profile to hang these up on the wall, you would definitely have a problem. Because what would happen is the profile toolpath would attempt to cut along this tail, then cut this entire thing here, and come back this way, cutting into your letter I. For an outside profile, you would want all these letters joined up so that they are one piece. And that's where these modifications come in. Now, right now, I could do a little bit of kerning to change my letter spacing, but in all honesty, I think the letter spacing is okay. What needs to happen is we need to weld some of these letters together. So let's go ahead and get started. I would like to weld together what can be welded together. But before I do, I want to look to make sure that, like this H and I, the tail of this H is fully inside this letter I, so I don't have any funny angles. That's fine right there. This cannot be welded together, really. They would combine into a jumbled mass, and you wouldn't be able to tell what they were. So these would each have to be cut out as separate letters and mounted on the wall separately. Here we have the A fully embedded in the M. We have the M not quite embedded in the P. So we'll do a little bit of kerning here. We'll come up here to edit text spacing and curve. And we'll come down here between this M and this P. Zoom in here and I'll click. Now, personally, I think that brought them too close together. So I'm going to hold down Control and tap the letter Z to undo that change. I don't want to move them that close together. So using edit text spacing and curve wouldn't be the right choice to me in this case. So rather than doing that, I'll go back to my standard selection mode here. Rather than doing that, I think I'll wait until we convert these to curves and then move these individually so that I can make finer adjustments. For right now, there's not a lot I can do to this without converting it to curves. So let's go ahead and do that. Now there's two ways I can do it. One, I can come up here and use this icon, convert the selected object to curves, or down here on my drawing window I can right click, and select Convert to Curves. They both do exactly the same thing. I'll just select this one since I have it open. And now our text object has been converted to standard vectors that can be edited just like any other vector. So now, to fix the spacing here and get this vector from the M up into the shaft of this P, I have a choice. I can either select the E, L, and P and scoot them over to the left, or I can select the A and M and move them over to the right. Doesn't really matter in this case because the move is going to be so small. I'll just select the A and the M. I'll zoom in real close. I'll again select the A and M by clicking on the vector, and that puts me in move and transform mode. Then I can come up here and grab the corner and just slide it straight over so that that corner is inside the letter P. Then I can click off, and that is okay. Let's take a look at the P and the L. Yeah, that is inside the vector here, so I will leave that alone. And I will leave that one alone. Now I want to weld these letters together. Now previously I said to select just the bottom here. We wanted to stay away from these inner vectors here. But I didn't demonstrate why. So I'll go ahead and do that now. I'll select these. And I have selected the inside vector on the letter L and the E here. And we'll go over here and we'll, under Edit Objects, to Weld Selected Vectors, and I'll click that icon. And we see what happens. The inside vectors here on the letter E and the letter L disappeared. What welding does is it makes separate vectors. It connects them up and makes them one closed vector. By selecting these inside vectors here, the software thinks we want this to be solid. Well, we don't want that to be solid, so I'll hold down Control, tap the letter Z to undo that weld. We'll click off, and I'll just select the bottom portion here, avoiding the inside of my A, my L, and my E, and I'll weld these. Now, when I click off and take a look, all of my transitions from one letter to the next are nice and smooth, and I still have my inside vectors that will allow me to cut that out if I'm doing this on a profile toolpath. So, when you're welding, avoid these inside vectors. So that's the first word done. And that's actually the easier one of the bunch. Next, we'll jump up here to the word this. Now, we already know that this letter H and I are okay, but I do want to change that slightly. So I'll select it, click it again to go into Move and Transform mode, and I don't want it right there. I want to drag it a little bit closer here. Let me get in a little closer. Bring that over about like so, because I think that gives me a better line here and a better line there. It's not as sharp as it was. Okay, that looks good. Now I need to connect the letter S with the letter I, and I have a couple of ways of doing it. Probably the easiest, select the S, select it again to go into Move and Transform mode. And this time I'm going to grab this corner and I'm going to drag it right down to that corner and snap it right there to that corner. With geometry snapping being a new feature in version 9.0 and above, I no longer have to play around with my cursor up and down and left and right keys. I can just grab a hold of that corner and snap it to this corner, and they're going to line up just fine. I will have some editing to do down here on this corner, but this line up here is going to be a nice smooth transition. So I can go ahead and click off of that. And now we can weld these. So I'll go ahead and select, weld, click off, and now I can come in and look, and that's a nice smooth transition right there. There is a little bit of an angle, but that's an angle that you would expect coming from a diagonal swoop up to a more vertical swoop. Here, however, we have this funny little bump here. So let me go ahead and select that vector, and I'll tap the letter N to go into node editing. And we see here we have a few additional points that we may not need. So I'll go ahead and put my cursor over this point, right-click, and delete that point. Right-click, delete this point. Zoom out a little bit. I think I'll right-click, delete that point. And this one's unnecessary now, so I'll right-click, delete that point. Now when I zoom out, I can see I have a nice smooth transition here, and they all look to be one piece. Click off to deselect. That's a much nicer looking transition. So I'll tap the letter N to come out of node editing, and this is now finished. And I would do the same thing down here with my transition between the E and the X. And I do need to move that T over, so let's select that T, go into move and transform mode, and I want to grab that T and snap it to that corner. That's just fine. Then I want to select that E, select it again to go into move and transform mode, and I'm going to zoom in real close and grab this corner, bring it up, and attach it right there. Looking at it again, I think I'm going to change my mind on that. I think I'm going to grab it by this corner and bring it down here. And because this is going to need some work no matter which way I go. So we'll close that. Now I'll take these, avoiding my inside vector, weld, click off, and take a look. My X to T transition looks good, but my E to X looks pretty bad. So I'll select, type N to go into node editing, come in here and take a look at what I have. Well, I have a couple of points here that I don't need, so let me delete this point, then back up and take a look. I don't think I need this point here. If I delete that point, I think that's nice and smooth right there. This point here I think needs to be moved inwards just slightly. And then I'll take my handles and kind of adjust that to kind of smooth that out. Let's click off to take a look. That still needs a little bit more adjustment. I'll bring it in just slightly. Then grab my handles. Just kind of smooth it out a little bit. Click off, and that's much better. That's 100% subjective. If it looks good to you, then that's good enough. So I've tapped the letter N to come out of node editing, and my text is ready for V-carving or profile cutout. Now what I would do would be select all of the text and group it so nothing gets moved accidentally. Then we can come over to the Toolpaths tab, select that text, and I'll do a V-Carve toolpath. I think for this text, being it's only 2 inches tall, I'll use a 60-degree V-bit, and we'll call that V-Carve. We'll calculate that toolpath. With the toolpath selected, I'll go ahead and change the color to black so that you can see it a little better. And we'll preview that toolpath. Now I can take a look and see how this is going to look this way. We have a nice smooth transition here. We have smooth transitions between all of the letters. Even this E and X looks pretty good. And if I put my cursor over the title of the toolpath, we can see that the max depth is 0.1561. So it's deeper than 1/8 of an inch, but not quite 3/16 of an inch deep. And that may work out just fine for this size text. If I went with a 90-degree V-bit, I don't think it would cut these fine details here deep enough. I think it would be very easy to sand that away. So I think a 60-degree V-bit is a good choice for this toolpath. The main thing to remember when working with script fonts is that it is meant to mimic handwriting. So joining these letters together to look as though it's one continuous writing session so that all these transitions between these letters look nice and smooth as they would if you were handwriting this text. That's the key. So, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, I do hope you'll give me a thumbs up. As I said earlier, today at noon Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be hosting a live Q&A session right here on my YouTube channel where we can discuss anything and everything I've demonstrated in this video. Again, that's noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on my YouTube channel, and I'll put a link to that live Q&A session down in the description box of this video. Now, these live Q&A sessions are a lot of fun, so I do hope you'll join me this afternoon. And if you'd like to follow along with my further CNC adventures, I do hope you'll subscribe to my channel. And when you hit that subscribe button, click that little bell icon right next to it. Then click it one more time and set that to all notifications. Then you'll get a notification the next time I post a video and the next time I go live. So, once again, I hope to see you this afternoon. And as always, whether you subscribe to my channel or not, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and y'all take care.